Thank you for watching and welcome to another In the Field CEO barbecue. This time I'm in Portugal visiting a tungsten development project that's operated by Allied Critical Metals.
So tungsten is important in this economy always, not only now.
I don't see any problems in the permitting, okay? But other countries are much more demanding than Portugal.
Likely we'll see a revenue in Allied in 2026.
But can you really build mines in the EU in this day and age? Is the community happy to sign off on it? Are there any environmental challenges? Are there any nature parks or protected areas? And even if it all worked out, how does Allied plan on making money for its shareholders without diluting too much? Those are hopefully some of the questions that I'm going to be getting answers to today, and I'm taking you along for the ride with me. Our trip starts here in rainy Porto, which by the way you wouldn't tell by looking at the air right now, but it's been pouring rain since we got here and supposed to rain over the next couple of days pretty heavily as well. Hopefully we do get a couple of those nice windows where I can take the drone up and whatnot and get some footage as well. Trip starts here in Porto though, and we're going to be driving up north to the historic Boralho mine and where the project is. Take a look at that. It's about an hour and something drive from here, I believe. There's 14 of us on this trip, so we're going to be getting on a bus here shortly. And the first thing we're going to do is actually take a bit of a detour. We're going to stop by the deep sea port of Porto, which is actually funny now that I'm thinking about it. About a 30-minute drive from here, and then an hour and something drive from there to the project. So let's go and ask some annoying questions.
So as you can see, our left side is the deep water port, is Leixões port. The good thing about it is close to Porto, but actually from side to here you don't need to cross the traffic. It's quite accessible and quite close to side. So this is the first, one of the most important things to realize is that we don't need 3 or 4 or 5 years of development of project to build up infrastructures or roads, and not also it affects directly the timing, but mostly the needed investment to build up here an operation. So now we will move to site because it's raining, so we'll go slowly. But again, by cars you should take around an hour, 45 minutes to an hour.
It actually took us about an hour and a half to leave the coast behind and climb into the Barroso Mountains on our way to Boralho. We also did stop at the Venda Nova Dam on our way there, which it sits on the Cavado River basin on the Robagao River. It's just upstream from where this water eventually feeds into the wider Cavado system, and that's important because it is part of the same system that drains the Boralho mine, which is why what happens up at the mine doesn't just stay at the mine. But more questions about that later on. This is an important dam though. It's been operating since 1951, and today that same reservoir feeds 3 hydroelectric power plants, which together can generate roughly 1 gigawatt of electricity at full output. And Vittorio also told us that because of the high voltage, they're going to have to build their own or another power line if the mine is to operate on it, but it would be just about 6 kilometers long.
So the mine and the project is after those mountains. If you look in front of you, you'll see water pipes. You'll see water pipes coming down the mountain. Basically they are diverging Boralho River to that power plant that was built in the 50s and still producing a lot of power. So over there, you see those pipes over there? Vai parar na ponte. So those pipes over there, they are diverging the river, and here this plant here, still working, and was producing power for the smelter, for all the mine and all the population. we are trying to get a number to buy it actually, so that you can change even the economics of the project. So it's owned by a private guy. Mr. Iliri is a good guy, but he loves when it's raining. He makes a lot of money with this. He brought this in the 80s. Still work with the same machinery from the 50s. Still producing a lot of power. And the dewatering gallery is left of the plant to see that water coming in. So it's a gallery that dewaters everything up to -60 level. So we won't even have OPEX costs with water up to, here 3 or 4 of the mine. So that will help us a lot in the payback.
So a short drive, I want to call it 15 or so minutes up from the dam. We're getting off the bus and into the municipality-run Museum of Boralia to get some background on how the mine started and operated in the first place over 120 years ago.
This mine started out with a very humorous history. Basically, there was a guy that was originally from here. His name was Boralia. And he was working in another place, northeast from here. And there were some French prospectors looking for tin and tungsten. And they said, "What are you doing? Are you crazy?" We are looking for these things. Stones like these black stones. In my land, I throw them to the ship because they are heavy and they are good. So tell me exactly what you are doing, because that's a lie. Because if you're looking for these stones, I just found the El Dorado, and eventually came here with him, and that's how by the start.
This was 1900 when Domingos Boralia talked to that French mining engineer, took him up to Boralia and showed him the rocks and so on. And then from 1903 onward, the operation ramped up rather quickly, and it started exporting tens of tons of tungsten concentrate, and later became one of Portugal's leading tungsten mines. Through the First and Second World Wars, the ore from these hills fed a strategic metal into that global arms industry that was very much needed at the time, and the company built its own small hydro plants on the local rivers to power those workings, and it may be unintentionally brought a kind of a modernity to what was a rather obscure and an overall poor region. Mining was very important here. It ran almost continuously from the early 1900s until the mid-80s, with a couple of hiccups, of course, along the way, 2 major stoppages in the 40s and the 50s. But it was then abandoned between 1985 and 1986 with no rehabilitation to this day. And that's where the municipality-ran museum, in combination with Allied's plans, come in to expand this museum.
We want to be part of this, we want to be part of the history, and we want to create more history. So for us, this makes all the sense. So the mine should be not only a mine that will exploit tungsten and create revenue, but it will also be a tool of education. This is an architectural concept, and our idea is to have a false tunnel to build up with the museum, to allow them to use this for educational purposes, right below our plant. So this is our plant, this is the old shaft, we will keep the whole shaft, the plant will be built around the whole shaft, and over there, it's here, there's a false gallery, there's a gallery that the museum will be able to use, and they will cross the plant and they will be able to go up there to the entrance of the mine to see the trucks and miners going in and out. So this is the overall view. We will stop here because probably it's raining too much, but we will drive around the breccia, see these tailings. This is the old shaft, all these buildings already exist. We will cover this historical hole, and the museum will be able to use this platform and cross the plant to these stairs and to watch the trucks from above. As you can see, this is the plant, these are the offices, it's quite close, and this is built now for a 0.5 million ton throughput here. With the new discoveries we have, we'll be able to double the throughput with barely changing this footprint. Right? It's another idea of the post-mining concept here. We deliver to the Mining Bureau, as of an environmental impact assessment, the post-mine concept. And the idea is to, decommission the plant, create a vertical garden, and we look and leave here a good history for the next generations.
So we're getting some coffee, and as someone who mostly drinks instant coffee, really, a Portuguese coffee is what a real coffee should taste like, and it's a bit of a cold and a rainy day, as you can see, so it is very much welcome. Quickly after that, though, we're headed to where the old shaft was, so what Vittorio is talking about in this presentation, which is, it's just a couple of minutes up it's a twisty and an incredibly wet road, but it's just a couple of minutes up the road, up the mountain, and hopefully we can talk to Roy over there. All right, Roy, so what is this? We just drove up from the museum, from this city center, and there's not city, but the center of Borealia.
Yeah, the village of Borealia.
Yeah, the village of Borealia, yeah. What is this? Where are we?
Well, we're at the actual previously existing mine site. We're inside a building that was part of the infrastructure. As I said, the mine was shut down in 1986. Nothing has, so it's almost 40 years since there has been anything done here, but it was a 5-minute drive from the village, paved roads, and you're already at the mine site.
Mm-hmm. What is this though? Is that like a generator, or?
I think it's the cable for the mine shaft, isn't it?
Oh, because the cable goes right up to, so that's the mine shaft over here that we saw.
Yeah, all this is going to be demolished, and we'll have brand new equipment, brand new buildings. The equipment and the technology has improved so vastly over the last 40 years that all of this is obsolete, and there's no real sense in trying to save it. And we'll be mining the breccia as opposed to following the veins, which these guys did traditionally, and that's why we were able to get such better grades than what historically they had, is because we focused on the breccia.
Yeah. Coming up here, there was a couple of houses, looked like there might be people living there. What is going to happen to those?
So there's a couple of they're actual squatters in these houses.
Oh, so they don't live here like legally?
Well, they live here. They as I said, it's been abandoned for about 40 years, the mine site. So they raise their kids here, but they're not actual owners. And we've talked to everybody there, and my understanding is the majority of actually the family that lives there is in favor of the jobs and the economic prosperity that the mine will bring to the area.
Right. So what are you going to do with all these buildings? Everything's going to get demolished. You're going to put your own infrastructure in here?
Yeah, brand new. We've got a mining plan already done that includes expanding actually the museum that you visited this morning onto this site, so that they have a view of the underground mining operation that was historically here. But we're going to use a lot of the tailings to level off the site over here, where we're going to be building most of our processing plant.
Where are we headed to now? Lunch?
I hope so.
What are we having?
I think it's raining hard, so it's going to be maybe a shortened visit today. But it's there's a lot of good restaurants in the area, and other places that are going to economically benefit for people like us coming to see the mine site.
And then we're going underground right after lunch.
Then we're going to go to Vila Verde, and Vila Verde includes the Val de Gatas mine, where you guys can go underground and follow those veins and see what type of mining they were done. You'll see it's underground mining, but it's not very deep. It's really very shallow underground mining, but it does give you a sense of, because you can see the large veins right on the wall. And Val de Gatas historically is the third largest mine in Portugal, so it should be very interesting for you guys to see that.
Let's go to lunch.
Let's eat.
First thing after lunch was actually another coffee, if I dare to admit, but it was actually to head over to where the proposed pilot plant would be, and then we're going to be headed to the underground.
So, we are entering at one of Vila Verde main sites. This is what we call the Justus area, where we plan to build up the pilot plant. So basically all the ground from the paved road to the track, all this ground is pay ground. This is a 2 km by 800 meter width belt. everything you touch and break is mineralized. The real question is what is below. We dig a couple of holes, not knowing what we are drilling, and we hit a very interesting mineralization, different type of things. So this is a giant. This is a old quarry where we plan to put the pallet. So we have plenty of voids to fill with tailings, and eventually reuse some of their equipment. So this is a huge aerated bush. Here we believe we'll be able to open this, so that will be fun. But it's full of bush, and we really need to get dirty to see this in detail.
So after seeing it, unfortunately, it's not much. I mean, that's literally what we saw. Just, drove by, passed it for a couple of minutes. It was too much rain, so no drone footage, couldn't really inspect the site or anything, but that's where it's supposed to be. And now we're actually headed into the underground. Now, the so-called underground is the old Valle dos Gatos mine, which, seen from above, it sits between vineyards, oak woods, and some farmhouses. It's a few kilometers north of the town of Sabrosa, and this was a tin tungsten district with a cluster of shafts, adits, and surface plants kind of tucked into what is a very narrow valley, with historic ore bodies here running along fractures and veins in the granite. Underground, the old-timers here mostly chased the steep and sometimes narrow quartz veins that were hopefully rich in wolframite and cassiterite, and that's how the formation that we're going to be going into was cut into the side of the rock. At its peak, more than 1,000 people worked here, and most of the ore came from the underground and that, again, network of galleries, one of which we're going to be going into. The mine operated for almost 100 years, so from the 1880s up to 1986, when the tungsten price fell to an economically unsustainable level, really. So can it really be turned back on today? Well, let's go underground, see what kind of infrastructure there's left, and look at whether there's any of that quartz and wolframite left in the rock.
On top you can see a vein, that reddish stuff, and then you can see all these walls. This material was exploited. These are sub-levels of the mine. At the surface this was like just a small fracture, but old miners exploit this. Then people like Simon during the 80s, they were exploiting this for road constructions and aggregates material, and they opened this face of the mine to exploit the granite. But what matters is that right, you see the contacts, the hanging wall and footwall, and if you chase this, you look at here, and you see here where my foot is the footwall of the vein, and here is the hanging wall. So if you measure from here to here, it's about 1.2 meters. It's a super large vein for the vein type of mineralization. So we prefer large stuff. We like more disseminated stuff, not so high grade, because they are low OPEX, but with veins of this size, with mineralization that you will see, okay, make us wonder. Probably this is quite worth to have a second look, and as a secondary prospect to explore this, because on a deep point of view, these veins, they have this very flat inclination. So the deepest level of the mine, exploratory level 8, is about 180 meters true depth. So it's quite shallow. So this is a very interesting operation to eventually restart someday. So we invite the brave ones to enter. No danger, okay, no problem. We will enter, we will see the veins, and you will see the mineralization that they left. So they usually left the bad part to act as a safety pillar.
Okay.
So the good part, they took it out. So remember, white stuff means ore zone, vein, quartz. Black stuff means pay, it's wolframite. And remember, white black. And remember, 0.3, 0.4% is a lot. And wolframite is way denser. than the quartz. So 0.2% of the volume of the vein is a super rich vein. 0.2%. So if you see it, if you are able to see the black, you are already see percentual values. Right. And what you will see now is what they left, the poorest part. Look at here, what they exploit, look at this white stuff. See the fault in the top and in the base?
Yeah.
The white stuff is what matters. But the black stuff in the white stuff.
Right.
This
carries the black stuff.
Yes, that's right. This is huge. Look at this. First of all, it's a huge vein, you know? And then look at that black stuff. This is a super high grade stuff.
Yeah, okay.
This is easily 2-3%.
Yeah.
It's $1,000 per ton rock.
How thick of a vein did you say it was?
It goes from 1 meter to 2 meters.
What is it?
Here, you see the white here and over there, the limit, that's the vein. The miners, look, they didn't spend time taking out what it's not rich, so the roof is exactly the limit of the vein. But you know, as we mentioned, the mine is still open and still shallow, so in the vein it's there. I went down there, so what we should do is not here, but in the next levels, yes. Just keep doing what
Levels
these guys.
down.
There, levels down.
Okay.
Because this goes way down. That's the amazing example of mineralization. So this is the main shaft. From here you can access the deepest levels. With a very few restoration works we can drive through it. We already mapped and visit most part of this. Basically this is the main shaft, and then you have levels that goes that way and this way and do all the exploitation between levels. But this goes about 150 meters, and then they have another new shaft that goes at least 50. So this is a big one.
150 meters?
Daqui tem que ir acima. Yes, about 150. But it's inclined, so real depth is not that much. And we can actually reuse this to restart operation. This is not even our main target. Because veins, they are very rich, but it's hard, they are hard to drill.
Yeah.
Not like to represent, because the mineralization is usually so condensated that when you drill, you cannot even assay. So this is something that we have to develop carefully, to look the stability of the mine, to drill properly, and then to try to reopen it. Our main target is the first one we stop, when you want to build up the pilot plant with all the tailings we have at the surface.
It's easier to access.
No, this only needs a little bit of patience and engineering work. It's not that hard. This is a mineral that appears together with mineralization, not often, but this is a offshoot of it. It's fluorite. You show him, please look at it.
So that's not.
That's not mineralization, but it's a mineral that is a sort of a gem. It's a gemstone.
What color is this? Purple?
Purple fluorite. This is depending on this one is more rare, but depending on the transparency and the quality so some guys came here, they found a nice pocket, and they were in Europe. From this mine here, they are the most beautiful fluorites in Europe. And some of them can cost like 3,000-4,000 a small grain.
Okay, I'll see you later.
But you need a nice crystal without fractures, and it's you need to be lucky.
Polish them up.
Yes. But fluorites from here, they have. Look at this.
What does that mean for you, though, in terms of metallurgy or anything else?
It doesn't screw up anything. It's not an issue. It's not an issue. They are not so dense, so they will go to the waste. But
Not hard that it hurts your mill?
no, they are soft actually. No, that's not an issue. But in some places, if they can be a subproduct because of the rare earths, if they can carry.
That's actually about it for the site tour. I could just as easily end this video here, and the day is almost done as well. We're now going to have to drive back to Porto and hang everything out to dry. before heading back home tomorrow. And we've talked quite a bit today, so I can imagine everybody's tired. Most will try to sleep a little bit on the ride back on the bus, but I still have a lot of questions that I didn't get to ask in kind of the chaos of everything. Again, 14 of us on this trip. So I'll spend the time talking to Vitor specifically about tungsten. All right, Vitor, I want to talk to you about tungsten, specifically the tungsten market. Why tungsten and why now? Why is it important in this economy?
So tungsten is important in this economy always, not only now. I understand the question and glad we are here for the now. But I think that the now comes because we forget about the importance of tungsten. Okay, recent Critical Raw Material Act regulation that European Union put together proves that tungsten is the metal with the highest economical importance for Europe. So, besides all the defense and basic use of tungsten, it's important to don't forget that you don't cut, you don't grind, you don't have any electrical circuit without tungsten. So we like to highlight always the need of the now, because it's more than obvious. China controls 87% of the tungsten, and we have no way to, on a short-term scenario, control the producing of more tungsten, except for Borralha as well.
Yeah. Is the price where it is right now, is that sustainable? Because it's gone up a lot.
Look, I think we should look to the history, and the price, the surprises of the price are not the highs of now, but lows of the last years. So if you backtrack the tungsten price from the 40s, they reached numbers that adapted to the value of the money. As nowadays, it will be $1,500 to $2,000 MTU. So that is about 3 to 4 times more than what is the price now. So we keep expecting the tungsten price to keep rising, and tungsten price was low because it was a strategical decision from China as well.
What's the average cost of production around the globe? What is CapEx, OpEx, everything combined? What does it cost to produce tungsten?
Yeah, that is the most important question when you go to a tungsten project, in our opinion, because we like to normalize the cost of production to obtain 1 MTU. So 1 MTU is the unit price of selling,
right?
And tungsten, it occurs in two principal forms of minerals: wolframite and scheelite. Wolframite traditionally is simpler and cheaper to process and to concentrate, and scheelite is traditionally a little bit more challenging. Also, usually, scheelite comes with other type of minerals that are a little bit nasty and higher penalties. So, as you go to Portugal, you see cases like Panasqueira that is still running, that can produce concentrates up to 75% WO3 grade. So the cost, it's very important to understand that more than the grades, the costs are the most important thing. So on that, usually scheelite has higher costs, and small structures to mine have higher operational costs. That's where we believe that Borralha, as an allied critical metals, we have a hedge comparing to most part of the other projects, because we are very simple in terms of mineralogy, and we already are proving it with proper metallurgical test works, and we are a bulk or a bulkable type of deposits. Some of our sections goes to more than 100 meters true width, so we will be able to develop bulkable, easy, low cost operational mines.
And you talk about being able to do that relatively quickly. If that's the case for you, wouldn't it mean that once the price goes up too high, a lot of production will come online and therefore push the price back down? Or how easy is it to just turn on tungsten production?
Yes, that goes to the part of the other question, the capex. In this case, we, as you are seeing now, we are quite close to the port. We are quite close to site, and we have highways and good access. So in tungsten, when it comes to tungsten production, it's not only how much it will take to start, but how much you can produce, how much you can feed. So when we start this project was even before the rise of tungsten, because as it is itself, is a project that works very well with half of the price of tungsten that is now. So, to be honest with you, we are not very worried with the price, because we can be quite economic with lower prices than they are now. Yes, they will keep rising. Hopefully, eventually, someday they will flat or even drop a little bit. But with the offtake agreements that we already have now, with the base for prices that we already have now, we have more than enough comfort to plan the future. Okay.
What about secondary supply of tungsten, like recycling and so on? Does that happen?
Recycling is supposed to be a thing, and it is a thing, but as it happens in other metals, recycling is not able to guarantee the supply of large volumes, and also the cost. At the end of the day, you need economical productions, and the recycling of tungsten still be a little bit of a niche in terms of an economical activity, because not all tungsten is easily recyclable. So keeps me easy taking it from ground.
Yeah. If we go back to primary production and thinking about turning on new supply, what about geology? What am I looking for within tungsten geology? Within copper, I might be looking mostly at grade and size and a little bit of metallurgy. What am I looking for in tungsten deposits?
Yes, tungsten deposits, and that's a great question, and that's the question that we should have to educate people that really want to invest in tungsten. Tungsten, it's a very unique type of mineralization. It doesn't occurs everywhere in the world, and is usually related, or mostly related, with granites. But then, on the second level of resolution, it can occur in different type of structures. You can have the traditional classical veins, small veins, 20 centimeters veins, to 1 meter vein, to 2 meter width veins, but those can be rich, but have very high operational costs, and they need labor, and specific labor. That is, I would say, each time more hard to find properly. Then you have another type of structures that are usually skarns. Skarns are sort of lenses that have usually a width that is more generous than the veins, but usually they come with nasties, with all the sulfides or a little bit more penalties. And then you have recent or curious, unique things like borralha. Borralha, it's a breccia. And below our known breccia, we are finding primary mineralization in granite. So, to put you in context, I think it's easier to understand for people. I don't like to say this, but I will say, when you go to copper and you see veins or porphyries, in breccia it can happen. You have the vein type of deposits, and then you have the big bulkable type of deposits that are not very common, I should say. You see the biggest shinies and the biggest, in Kazakhstan mine, they are this type of disseminations, and in our case, borralha is, I would say, is a unique type of occurrence in Europe. Okay, so that's why this is a different project. Again, we are speaking about things that have sometimes up to 100 meters.
Is it different though from, like, let's say the US? You hear about tungsten a lot right now, and then you talk about China and then the US, and there's a bunch of tungsten all over the place, it seems like it. How is what you have different than what the guys over in the US have, or the Chinese do?
Yes, first of all, Chinese still rely a lot on the classical vein type of deposits, and those have usually limitations in terms of throughput of what a mine can deliver in terms of concentration. When you go to US, you have some interesting deposits, but mostly related with these skarn type lenses or some disseminations. But, and I think that numbers matters here. We are 1 hour from Porto, so once we have the environmental impact study that it's now on its final stages, still on 2025. Okay, we should have maximum January 2026 should have first green light. This is a project that we can build in quite fast,
Is that because of the geology, or just because of everything else you're talking about?
It's because of the infrastructure, and it's because of the geology. And the very important thing, these things doesn't happen in one day. This thing doesn't happen that fast. We ourselves, as in Portugal, this team that we are part of, we have been keep a close contact with this project since 2012. So what for many people is a surprise that sometimes you look at news release and I have friends calling and suddenly we are putting all these great numbers and looks like we are lucky. No, it's just more than 12 years of work here, of understanding. So even when you are not drilling, you keep understand the project. So and that was the major tool to be so spot on and so apparently lucky with these recent results.
What's the biggest risk or challenge for tungsten deposits geologically? Like you might have with, gold could be refractory gold if it's very high grade. Yours is high grade. What are the risks that are related to that high grade?
So besides the mechanization, so the OPEX, if you are working on a small structure, not the case here, is the opposite. I will say that the biggest risk is to be able to produce sealable or high-grade concentrates. That's usually and you see the recent projects that are being ramped up, they are struggling on that. And the biggest issue right now is to produce sealable concentrates. That's why with the live critical metal, since the day one when you start to drill, we are producing our own concentrates from core samples, and we have been able to successfully achieve sealable concentrate grades with low penalties. So that over there we have an advantage because it's really a simple process. And again, this was a mine, so it's not it's a no-brainer thing. You just have to try to replicate what the old guys did before, and not try to mess up things.
Is the mineralogy variable? Do you have different mineralogy across the different domains, and does that change recoveries and nasties?
So again, on that we were quite lucky. Okay, when it comes to the tungsten, the department of tungsten, rather if it is in wolframite or scheelite, can difficult a little bit system. In our case, and we have a strong mineralogical, check around of our samples, and even from our test works, 95% of our tungsten is in wolframite. So wolframite can vary from eubnerite to furbrite terms, but it's wolframite at the end of the day. As we are using gravity separation, they are dense, so no big issues at least in Borralha. Also because we have a very, very, very low sulfide content. So when you have a lot of sulfides, you can have higher headaches. In our case, we not only have a very low sulfide content, around 1% sulfur at feed, but also it's coarse. So we can float it very well on the concentrate very easily, and the liberation happens at 250 microns. So it's quite nice, easy, and cheap to clean.
Do you think there might be a transition zone and then sulfidation at depth, or is that not generally how it happens?
So that transition zone, you see on our resource statement, that transition zone, we call it the oxide breccia, and then the fresh breccia, it keeps fresh in depth, and the real thing here is we are seeing a change on the deposit, where we move from a traditional collapsed breccia with fragments of surrounding rocks cemented by quartz and mineralization through primary mineralization in granites. But the good part is the tungsten still in wolframite, and we actually are running bulk samples, mixing all of these domains. We also run bulk samples in the oxide zone, and the recovery is amazing. But because of geotechnical reasons, as the fresh breccia is super stable and oxide breccia is not that stable, not super stable, we are planning all our underground operations to be focused on fresh breccia, so we won't have that geometallurgical potential issue with oxide material.
You mentioned that it's quite coarse before.
Yeah.
When I think of coarse gold, I think continuity challenges, and other stuff like that. What is grade and continuity, grade continuity, but also with continuity? Do you have a lot of variability, or what does that look like?
That is, I will say that was, personally speaking, that was the biggest surprise of this campaign. Okay, we developed a previous resource estimate based on the holes we had, historical ones and the ones that allied critical metals did in 2023 and 2024. And it's a pressure, it's supposed to be a mass, it's supposed to be very disseminated, but doing some experimental, just statistical distribution, look at radial plots, look at variograms and parallelograms, the pressure was pointing to a weird orientation, not the pressure, but the high-grade zones were pointing to an apparent weird orientation of higher-grade zones that were not necessarily what the pressure was supposed to be. The pressure was supposed to dip generally to west, and the higher grades were showing us that were dipping like 45 degrees west. So to have a subvertical thing dipping east and you have a major trend going west, it's like apparently not expectable. But we believe on numbers, we believe in our detailed models. We spent a lot of nights and hours doing all the geostats, and actually our recent record hits were based on just statistical belief. We were following the pitch of the main high grades, and you follow the high grades on top, you go down deep, and they are like with a metric resolution, they are there. What you cannot control, it's how rich they are or how wide they are. What we know is that the higher grade corridors are there, but still be a negative deposit. But they are always big. When I say big, we don't even look to metric intervals. Okay, well, we are looking always to at least half a dozen meters intervals.
Right.
But sometimes that they can go up to 20 or 30 or 40 meters higher grade backbone zone. So the width varies, okay, the grade varies, but always follows this overall tendency of the higher grade zones. And this is a very important fact that allows us to do proper mine design. Okay, so it's not a mess. It's not it's negative, but negative within corridors.
Right.
And that is great for us.
How replicable do you think these grades are across the deposit? You think can you really find more of that, or is it just kind of like that one occurrence?
I won't say that they are I won't say that they are trustable on the way that they are getting better in depth. So we can replicate those. Actually, we are replicating the higher grades in that surface. The corridors are following in depth, but the grades are increasing.
Right.
So if you compare the average grade of the initial 50 meters of pressure with the next 200 meters, the grades duplicate 2.5 times. So I'm not saying that because we are just starting. I'm not saying that the grades will keep increasing. If they maintain like that, we are more than happy.
I want them to be 2.5 times larger every time, and if they're not, I'm going to be calling you.
Yeah,
If this works out, I understand it's forward-looking, and you never really know before you've actually done it. If it works out, what's the final product you're going to be selling? And I understand it's going to be concentrate, but there's tin in there. There's other stuff.
Yeah.
So are you just selling tungsten concentrate? What are the grades going to be? Talk to me about that.
So our earlier metallurgical test works, we were able to produce 62 to 65 tungsten concentrate grade. Again, it's earlier test work, so means that we'll be able to go even higher than that. Obviously, we won't need that because at 65 we are already on a very high level of quality of concentrate. But as we are doing gravitic separation, the dense minerals follows the system. So rather if you use gigs, spirals, heavy liquid separation, you expect the wolframite, the citrite that carries the tin, and sulfites that are dense as well, they will always follow the system. So usually, no matter if we start with gigs or spirals or heavy liquid separation, usually we end up at shaking tables.
Okay.
So at shaking tables, you take out the product that ideally, and from our test works, we are seeing that you have wolframite, you have the calcitrate, tin, and the sulfides. So what's happened after is very simple. You grind a little bit to liberate the sulfides. We're already speaking about 1 or 2% of the feed, so it's a very lab scale beneficiation. You float the sulfides and you create the copper and silver credits. And Borralha always produced copper credits, even in the old mine, copper concentrates with silver credits. And here it will be the same. We already have flotation test works that prove it.
Okay.
So we will clean the sulfides out of the wolframite with a very simple flotation, pore size, and we will be able to produce the copper, very nice grade copper concentrate with silver credits. Then is electrostatic separation from calcitrate and wolframite. All the Portuguese mines since 100 years ago they were doing that. All the mines they had electrostatic separator to take out the wolframite and the tin. That's why even considering the fact that our tin is low grade, we will have the OPEX to take it out from the wolframite to clean it. So if you have a couple of bucks there, we can sell it. So the calcitrate will always follow the wolframite, and you always have to clean it because it's a penalty at the wolframite concentrate. And it's so easy to clean, it's electrostatic separation, so we will sell the calcitrate concentrates as well.
It's easy, but is it cheap in terms of capex? Would you have to put in a different circuit, or what would that cost?
When you're speaking about beneficiation of tungsten, we are already on a very low volume comparing to the feed. So if you start your flow sheet with 100% of what you mine, by the time you go to a shaking table, and by the time you have to do beneficiation to clean the sulfides and to take out the calcitrate, we are already speaking about 1 or 2% of the initial volume. So the OPEX of this and the CAPEX of this is, it's very, very, very small. And it's already there because we have to do it to clean the concentrates, to achieve high grade. So it's a win-win.
Why stop there? Why stop at concentrate and not go further down to APT or powder and try to capture more of that value?
I will say that's a deep.
Your boss is listening, so think close.
That's a deep, long time dream. And let me tell you something. It's not just because, yes, that we are soon ramping up a second project close to Borralha. Okay. When it comes to to smelting tungsten into APT. In its size, Borralha on its own will be able to justify a smelter. Further on, with what
there was a smelter there.
That's what we would say. There was a time where there were only 3 smelters in Europe. One in Germany, one in France, and a third one in Borralha. So that speaks tons, okay, about what Borralha means. Not on purpose that the American minister in Portugal back in 1942 decided to guarantee the supply of Borralha to UK and to USA through UK because we have an alliance with UK.
Shocking.
Because Borralha was the biggest driver, was the mine that had the capacity to really produce tons, and actually, we can speak about it. These are not formal or write-off story, but taking care of the tungsten and Portugal announcing the embargo to Germany, the selling of tungsten, and was the time that was the way that Portugal had to formalize the entry at the Allies, because we were a neutral country. So the way that we formalized the entrance on the Allies was to say 2 weeks before D-Day, we will not sell any more tungsten to Germany. So controlled tungsten was the way that the Allies had before D-Day to prepare after D-Day to prepare all the scenario to don't allow Germany to get back again, producing all the valued material.
So historically, it went west to the US. If you end up producing a concentrate, who does it go to? Can anybody buy it? Do you think the EU would let you sell it to China, or where would you see it going?
Look, I'm Portuguese, and we are allies. So we have there are plenty of potential buyers, nowadays. But as you see from our recent release, we have a strategic letter from the Department of Defense. So whatever we sell it, the concentrates, our idea is, and you see our name, Allied Critical Metals. So we are a European producer, and on the second scale we are an allied producer of tungsten, and that's our goal, and that's what we will do. Okay.
Would it limit the prices that you can charge though? Would it change the pricing dynamics? Would someone tell you how much to charge if there's no competition coming from the east? Can you still charge a high enough price essentially?
Yes, we can do it, but I would say that nowadays we will be more interested in guaranteeing long-term agreements rather than think about the super costs of tungsten, because as I mentioned, it will keep rising, but the prices we have now are already more than enough for us. So we are more focused on building up a mine as soon as possible, as good as possible, and to guarantee supply for the allies. So the price right now, to be honest, is not our major concern.
When do you think you're going to know more about offtake agreements? I mean, I understand it might be too early right now, but when's the right time to go after offtakers?
Allied Critical Metals, since the beginning, they have a different approach of work. You don't heard about much companies that they start to produce concentrates with the first holes. So let me tell you this: we have a very long-term strategic point of view way of working. So yes, offtake agreements are something that are supposed to happen, further down the line, down the road. But we are already having conversation, and we already have some formalized offtake agreements.
Right.
And now we are working to improve them. But we already have that ongoing.
So for that whole process, I'm going to work toward wrapping it up because I know everybody's getting tired of me. But so for that whole process, when you start digging the dirt up from the ground until the money's in the bank, how long is that process? You take it, you process it, concentrate, sell it, ship it, you get the money. How long is that process?
So in terms of mining itself, it's quite quick. So I will say that our plan is actually to ship. We have to detail that, but it's actually to ship at least worst case scenario on a monthly basis. So once we start operation, that we can start it very quickly. It's close to surface. We'll be able to start to ship after the first month. It might take a little bit of ramp up of the plant, but again, it's a quite simple process.
I didn't give you these questions up front, and you've done wonderfully, in my opinion. It seems like you do know your stuff. What do you think is the most underestimated or misunderstood thing about the tungsten market? What do you think everybody gets wrong about tungsten?
Well, that's the great question. So there's a couple of things. First of all, is lack of knowledge, of culture. Chinese have been doing this. They control 87% of tungsten, so people don't understand tungsten. They start to understanding now. And then is to understand the forms of tungsten. You have wolframite, you have scheelite. Not saying that scheelite projects are bad, but they can be more challenging, and you have to, there are great scheelite projects. But the challenges is to pass the message of, and I mentioned before, the porphyritic coppers and the gold and the copper. It's to understand what is really the cost of your production, and what is a high grade but high cost tungsten deposit, or what is a medium or low grade but high margin deposit. So as we speak in our technical team internally, every geologist or mining engineer that start work with us, we always pass the same message, think about dollars per ton, think about margins. And that's the challenge. So you should always look first, you look to the grade, but then look to the operational costs, look to the recoveries and the payabilities. If you cannot produce a 65% concentrate grade or a 60% WO3 concentrate grade, you'll have big deductions. So 0.4% WO3 project with a 60% recovery and producing 50% WO3 concentrates, will have the same revenue of a 0.2% project that recovers 75 or 80% and produces 65% concentrate. And that's a little bit, challenge to pass this message, and it's really important. It's very simple in terms of processing, but you need a little bit of a second level of detailing to understand all the economics of tungsten.
This was actually supposed to be my last day. I was just supposed to go on a plane to Brussels right now, but I feel like I haven't asked all the questions. Just driving over there, there's constant rains, and so what about floods? What about the weather? Also, the locals, I didn't ask about that. I also haven't asked about what about the nature parks and stuff like that around it. Beautiful scenery. Is it mineable though? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an extra day and I'm going to catch an Uber to Braga. That's where the company's offices are, and that's where I'm hoping to meet João. He's part of the team that put the projects together. He's a local, so I'm hoping he's going to be able to talk to me about that. So let's go in the Uber, go to Braga and talk to João. I want to talk to you about permitting, because the first thing that people tell me when I told them I'm going to Portugal, I'm going to look at a tungsten project, they're like, great geology, but good luck permitting. What is the permitting situation for you?
Well, it's pretty straightforward, okay, I can tell you. Permitting in Europe is demanding, okay? The legislation is strict, okay? But as long as you discuss with different entities that make up the evaluating committee, okay, and you submit what is in the legislation, I don't see any problems in the permitting, okay? Okay. But other countries are much more demanding than Portugal. Look, for example, Canada. Okay. Well, I hear that takes longer than Portugal and is more difficult because of indigenous people and any other related situations. In Portugal, as I told you, the legislation is not easy, it's demanding all over Europe. But as long as you start dialoguing with the regulators and explaining them what you intend to do, and allow them to guide you on what they want to see you to execute, there's no problem.
What are you going to need? Is it European Union and then Portuguese government and then local municipalities and communities, or what are the things that you need before you can actually start producing?
Well, you need first to receive the environmental impact assessment approval from the regulator, the mining plan approval from the mining bureau, and then you start licensing the construction of the surface infrastructures, okay? And then you can start mining.
Right. What's the timeline that you're thinking that it might take you? Because right now you don't have the environmental impact agreement.
No, we are on the final stages of getting the approval.
When do you think you might have it?
Beginning of January next year.
Oh, like really soon?
Yeah.
And then right after that, how long is the process?
Then it depends. There are two different ways of executing an environmental impact assessment. On a previous study phase, where you basically use concepts, okay? You have a resource, you build a mine plan around that resource, and you do the environmental baseline studies, and you submit for approval to the entities on a previous study phase, and then they issue, if approved, they issue an environmental impact declaration with certain conditions, okay? And then you go for the second phase of licensing, which we call recap. Okay? It's the detailed engineering, where we must make sure that your project complies with the conditions the regulators are demanding from you, okay? And then you receive the final approval. It means you can start construction. The other way of doing an environmental impact assessment, you do immediately from day one to a project engineering design, a final project engineering design. But you take the risk of the regulators saying yes or no. Okay? And if say no, you have to start from the beginning.
Right.
Okay? So we took the first approach. We presented an environmental impact assessment on the previous study phase. Okay? We have replied to all of the questions that have been raised by the different evaluating entities. They are on the final stages of assessing our documents. The public consultation period is a 50 working day period.
Right.
Ends on the 17th of this month. And then they will issue their, hopefully, the approval, okay? And we go for the recap phase, which depends the time we will take to answer and to finalize the detailed engineering design of the project. And depends on the conditions that they ask us for us to commit, okay, but probably between 6 to 9 months.
And that is for the full production, essentially, at full scale. The pilot plant, we went to look at where it's going to be and all that yesterday, I believe. But do you need more permitting for the pilot plant, or is the pilot plant almost as good as permitted now?
No, the pilot plant that we submitted for approval, it will be the one that we'll be building. We cannot change too much what we have been delivering to the authorities.
Okay.
Of course, that all the projects, they want to increase production. Okay, and have a higher throughput of the mine. You can update the mining plan as long as you don't get out of the environmental parameters.
Okay, that makes sense. So you don't need additional. It's not like you need permitting for the pilot plant one, and then you need a second permit for the full production. You can do it under one permit.
Yes.
Okay. And you think that's going to happen? What you think that might happen in 2026? You could be.
No, it will happen in 2026. Hopefully, yes.
For sure.
Yes.
Okay.
We are confident that we have the level of detail that we present nowadays to the authorities is already elevated. That we don't need too much detail to finalize.
I believe, though, and when I looked at it on the map before we went there, so first of all, when we drove up there, it's beautiful. I mean, it's mountainous and trees and everything. Yeah. There seems to be a national park close by. I don't believe it's on the...
No, the national park is 20 kilometers straight line from where the Borralla mine is.
So this is not in a UNESCO biosphere reserve or close by or something? Okay.
No.
Something else in Europe, Natura 2000 or Nature 2000?
No. We have done all those baselines. We identified where all those national parks or biosphere reserves are. We are outside of all of those.
Okay. But what about the river?
And the information is public. Anyone can access it.
What about the river? There's a river that passes through Borralla.
Yes.
It seemed like a big river. Well, it's raining, so it's definitely higher than it probably normally is. But
no, it's a small flow.
Okay.
But because of this extra rainy season we had this week, it carries a lot of water nowadays. But usually it's not as much as it is now.
We also saw the historic tailings, and it almost seemed like they're on the riverbed, and it almost seems like they might have gone into the river before, or what is that?
No. The mine is going to make around the 14th of January 2026, 40 years that has been stopped.
Yeah.
Okay. So that legacy there has more than 40 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's say 90% of the tailings have already been used by road maintenance and other civil construction. Okay. By the operators in the region.
Oh, for gravel, like to make roads?
Yes, make roads.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is that something you can use as well? Could you make money off of it?
They have used in the past, okay? Nowadays are probably not possible because the regulations are much more strict. But in the past, okay, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, that is what happened. And so 90% of the tailings are no longer in Borralla.
Well, because we saw tailings at Borralla, but also we saw tailings at your other project close to Villa Verde.
Villa Verde, yeah.
Do you have to clean that up? Is that something the government's going to require?
It's a mandate. Portuguese government have their own company, EDM, okay, that they have the mandate to rehabilitate the old mining sites.
Okay.
Okay. And we have for Borralla, for example, is the most advanced project. We have an agreement with them that all the tailings that are inside of where we pretend to build the surface infrastructures for our project, we are obliged to rehabilitate those, okay? The ones that are outside of our intervention area, it is not our obligation to intervene over those tailings. But we have an agreement with the state-owned company that once the project is approved, we will evaluate the quality of those tailings, and if we can incorporate into our tailings facility, we will, and we will help the state-owned company and the municipality to rehabilitate that old legacy.
You're going to help them clean it up essentially, and then maybe also use it in your own facilities. Which I suppose, could that sway kind of the decision in your interest, because you're basically helping?
It's also let's say a compensation measure that we have presented to the local municipality and to the authorities.
That's interesting. Talking about the local municipalities and the locals, maybe, when we were at Boralia, it doesn't seem like a lot of people live there.
No, around 150 people living in Boralia nowadays.
What about the protests? When I look it up, when I look up Boralia and stuff like that, there's like Facebook pages of people that are saying they're not happy with the mine. It seems like there's 100 and something people as well. Where are they coming from? How much of a challenge could that be?
Well, I can tell you, we have done a socio-economic study by the University in Braga about the acceptance of the Boralia project in the local village and within the municipality. Mm-hmm. Okay, and more than 90% support the reopening of the mine. In all of the projects, we have always people that don't like, it's not the mine, it's any development, okay? And there are other concerns that are legit to exist, is two landowners that have their houses very near where we pretend to build our infrastructures, but we have already started negotiations with them. Okay.
What are you negotiating? What are they asking for, and what could you have to give?
We have presented all of the options. Okay. We have presented. We will build a new house for them. We will buy 1 or 2 apartments for them, or they just receive in cash. Okay. It's up to them to choose. Okay. And we offered 35% above market price. Okay. Okay. Now, as they are waiting to see if the project is approved or not, we are also waiting to get into more detailed conversations, but it's up to them to choose whatever they want, and we'll fulfill with a commitment that we will maintain the current houses in good shape for them.
Yeah. Driving from the village of Boralia, from the museum up to where the old shaft is, there seemed to be a house where people were living, but as far as I understand it, they don't officially live there or legally live there, like they kind of just moved in?
It was old houses for the mine workers in the past, and they bought the houses to the person that bought all the surface infrastructure 30 years ago, and they are currently living there. Okay, so.
You would have to relocate them then if you
2 families.
2 families, okay, and you've spoken to them.
Yes.
Okay. What is it? So, do you expect any kind of slowdown or anything, or stop in development because of the protesters, the people who spray paint and so on?
You don't see too much protesters in the village of Boralia. Okay?
We didn't see any, again,
there are other projects in the vicinity that have a lot of protests, okay? But fortunately, the way we spoke with the local population and the municipalities from the beginning, we have a different relation with the populations.
Yeah. What's the consultation process like right now? I mean, do you have a direct communication line? I believe you live here in Braga, so you probably often, at the project in Boralia. Do you have a direct communication line, so you personally go and talk to them, or what does that look like?
I personally go and talk to them often, but we have an on-site person full-time as a project manager, my colleague Evelyn, that takes care of the daily management of the project and is there on a daily basis. So. And we are currently the biggest employer in Boralia. Okay. Only a few people, but we are the largest employer in Boralia.
Yeah. You were also going to help out expand the museum or something like that, I believe.
Yes, our idea, when the platform where we are building the surface infrastructures, we'll have an underground tunnel for us to extend the current museum to the new operations.
Okay.
Because the shaft and the buildings that are above the shaft, it's an old legacy that we are going to rehabilitate. Speaking with the municipality, maintenance can be visited by visitors. Okay, can go there. And below the surface infrastructures, there will be an underground tunnel where we extend the current museum.
What's the power situation in Boralia? Where is your power going to come from? We drove past by the dam. Is that enough to carry a mining operation?
Yes, enough. Okay, we have water availability is only a 1.8 or 2 kilometers pipeline. Okay, from the drainage gallery that drainages the old mine, and the water is a 6-kilometer line that we have to build.
Yeah. How often would you have power outages or something like that due to weather? Does that happen?
Not in the region.
Yeah.
Not in the region.
Okay. Transport options. I mean, we went to look at the at where the port is. So it was about with the bus and the traffic took I think about almost 90 minutes or something like that. So by truck, it might be that. You would be trucking from Boralia directly to the port.
To the port of Lechões, yes.
Okay. Does that require additional permitting or road upgrades, or what would you have to?
Now, an agreement with them. The number of trucks that we are the project will carry is around 4 or 6 trucks per week. So it's nothing that is going to have an impact,
right?
Okay, on the roads. But even so, if we increase the number of trucks on a daily basis or per week, we have to reach an agreement with the municipality for the upgrade of the roads, of course. Okay.
I know you have an important day and a big meeting, so I'll let you get to it. What do you think is the biggest challenge in that process from your perspective as the local? What do you think is the biggest solution that you have to provide?
The biggest solution is to provide a comprehensive, let's say, share of benefits with the communities. Okay.
Yeah.
After we come through this first licensing phase, the IA, then we'll have to work with the municipality and the population to share the benefits of the mine with them.
So there's one last conversation for me here before I head back home, and that's probably the most important one. This is the one that I typically do in the car. But how do they plan to take all the challenges and opportunities and everything that we've discussed throughout this whole report and actually juggle them into value for shareholders? Right, Roy, I want to talk to you about money and specifically how you plan on making people some money. What do you want to do? Or you told me that you want to go into production, but is that how you see the company developing? Are you prepping it for a sale? Where do you see this going?
Well, in the short term, I think management's role is to mitigate risk. And by mitigating risk in terms of developing the project, we reduce the risk-free interest rate, and we are able to create a bigger NPV value for the company in the eyes of the investor. So our first thing we're going to do is we're going to eliminate as much risk around building this out as we possibly can. So there should be share growth immediately in that respect. I think also part of management's job is to socialize to the market our favorable comparison in terms of the other relative values of similar companies out there. We think from the perspective of value, Allied is very interesting and undervalued by the market. As we prove out our resources, the next step is to go into production. The nice thing about what we want to do, which is essentially make 65% tungsten concentrate, is there's not a lot of technical challenges, if any, both in terms of scaling up, in terms of metallurgy. Remember, this is a mine that operated for 80 years and made a 66% concentrate. If they were able to do that with the technology they had 100 years ago, we should be able to do at least something similar with all of the advances today and new equipment. So we want to go into production as quickly as possible, and as we go down that road, the risk mitigation strategy includes resource estimates, includes building our pilot plant, which I think we've always talked about doing on Villa Verde. Simple, straightforward. It's going to mitigate risk for the larger plant. It's going to allow us to insinuate ourselves into the production schedules of smelters so they get used and comfortable with using our concentrate, which will allow them to be there in a bigger way, more robust offtake agreement when we build the bigger plant. at current prices, our estimation is that we would be making $7-8 million in revenue off 150 a plant treating 150,000 tons of mineralized ore a year, which is not insignificant because it's about $7 million US, I would tell you, to build that plant as well. So the return on capital is pretty good as well. Because as I said, the technology required, the ease at which you can make a 65% concentrate with our wolframite, we're probably, once we've got that the pilot plant financed or figured out and ready to finance, it will be 9 months before we're spitting out revenue off that plant. So likely we'll see a revenue in Allied in 2026.
Oh, wow.
So, if you look at...
revenue do you think you would have in 2026? Would it be enough to cover G&A and the operations of the...
I think it will help tremendously with G&A without figuring out too much about what G&A will be in 2026, because we're expanding everything as well. We're going to be working on building that bigger plant. It will certainly help manage the dilution to the shareholders and maintain that share price as well that I first talked about, that we're trying to build up as well. So I think it's a short-term short-term until we get to revenue. So I think, sometime in 2026 we should be there. And during that time as well, we're going to be working on our, we're going to get our PEA done. We're going to get our DFS done. We're going to work on we're going to have the environmental assessment done probably, I think we're going to be permitted on that probably early in 2026. So there's a lot happening. And I visualize all those things as mitigating the risk to getting to the build of that large plant. And once we're there, then we're going to start creating what I think is substantial revenue for the investors. And who knows what happens along the way. I mean, depending on what the market looks like, the valuation looks like, where some of these other companies are in terms of their growth. There's also a substantial opportunity to see us as a M&A candidate as well. So I think there's multiplicity of ways that an investor can make money by investing in Allied.
You're opening the door to a couple of questions that I'm going to ask you here. But what do you need the pilot plant for? I mean, it was in production historically. You know what it is, metallurgy and everything that you're studying through. So why do a pilot plant?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. There is, first of all, it's not very expensive, right? As I said, $5-7 million US creates a revenue stream. We're going to use it to clean up all of that millions of tons of artisanal waste all over the Justes property in Villa Verde. That'll allow us to drill the bedrock at Villa Verde as well. So there's that. And as I said, it allows us to insinuate ourselves into the production schedules of the smelters at a smaller amount that they can get comfortable with before they start ordering larger offtakes from us with the bigger plant. So I mean, I think there's a multiplicity of reasons why, and it's a pretty straightforward exercise that doesn't require any bespoke equipment. So it's an opportunity we certainly want to take advantage of.
How much money do you have right now?
I think in our bank right now there's roughly 18 million.
Where does that get you? The work that you talked about, PA, pilot plant, does it pay for everything?
So putting aside the capital costs of building plants, I think it basically means we're fully financed right through the DFS, probably to the end of 2026.
So you don't think you're going to have to raise capital before you have money coming in from the pilot plant?
I don't, not equity. I think we're going to be okay on the equity side. Obviously, if you're looking at building a pilot plant, it's a big chunk. And without saying never on the equity side, I don't think we have to. But if it's strategically opportunistic because of a particular opportunity that's non-dilutive or as non-dilutive as possible to our shareholders, then we would be open to it, but it's not necessary. I think we're pretty well situated if there's any weakness in the market.
Do you think you could use an operational strategic partner? Would you be willing to do maybe even a project level deal with someone who can help you, finance, but also find off takers and kind of help you, develop yourself into a producer?
Yeah, I think that's possible. I mean, we're also speaking, as we mentioned before, to various governments, both in Europe and in North America, for not just financing, but also for offtakes for their own strategic supply. More and more with the the tensions between the East and West and the choking off of a lot of those critical metals from China, for example. More and more Western countries are looking to build their own strategic supply. So it could well be that the governments actually give us offtake agreements themselves to build up a strategic supply. So there's a lot of possibilities on the offtake agreement. We obviously have been talking to multiple smelters as well. Also, there's also commodity brokers that are there. And we also have been talking to some companies that are interested in contributing to the growth of our company as operational companies that have experience building out plants like this. So any way we can mitigate risk, including by bringing in experienced, seasoned operators and builders, we're going to look at all of that.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned M&A there for a second, and I want to talk about M&A on both sides. You being the acquirer or the acquiree. Right. Would you be looking for additional projects? Is that something that's part of the company's plan?
So I've been shown a number of projects and been pitched on why it would be a strategic advantage to have a project, for example, in the United States. Listen, in my mind, Portuguese tungsten is the best tungsten in the world. And I'm not a big fan of the idea of picking up a mediocre project just to have a footprint somewhere else. I think our positioning in the market as a producer of high quality Portuguese tungsten is unique, and in the end will prove us to be one of, if not the leader in the Western world in terms of high quality tungsten concentrate.
Mm-hmm. What about on the other side of being the acquired company? Is this something there's a risk of? Could it happen too soon, where you get acquired prematurely and before you have been able to realize?
Well, that's not entirely in our control, right? If somebody decides to make a bid, but I can tell you that we are great believers that our company is undervalued. We are all big shareholders of the company, and we would, although it's our fiduciary duty to consider any serious offers that we receive. In my mind, that unsolicited bid would have to be multiples of what our share price is now.
Mm-hmm. At what stage would you think that value is most realized? Like, what's the perfect point to be acquired at? Is it DFS? Is it when you're fully producing?
Yeah, again, I think it goes back to the perspective on risk mitigation of the management of the other company and also what they're looking for. I would think if they're looking for if they're looking for tungsten concentrate for a specific purpose, they would like to do it before we commit to offtake agreements with third parties. If they're looking at it as an opportunity to diversify their revenue base, let's say for an already existing operator that's selling commodities and other types of commodities, then that could come once we've demonstrated that that we have a committed buyers for the tungsten. It depends again where they see the risk. Maybe once they see that we've got financing lined up to build the plants, maybe that's where they see the risk. Maybe it's the mineral resource estimate that they want to see that this is much bigger than the as we've said it is, than the current resource estimate that's out there right now. So it's hard to read other people's intentions and where they see the risk, but I can tell you that, I think this is why the strategy of mitigating risk to create value creates all these other opportunities as we move along.
Could just anybody acquire either? What I'm asking here is we've seen challenges before where Canada blocks a critical or strategic metal deal. So could a Chinese company come in and buy you?
I think the threshold, if I remember correctly, for at least for Canada, is the $100 million valuation threshold, which we are at, or at the moment, are pretty close to. So from that perspective, there probably would have to be an Investment Canada review. Other than that, I don't think there's any issues around it from certainly from a Portuguese perspective. I say that, but maybe that's not fair because I don't really know the rules as well as in Canada. But it is more and more becoming of national interest to protect your critical metals. So it could be an issue, but it also could be a reason for a bigger premium because of the nature of, critical metals and how important it's being viewed these days.
You're not moving to Luxembourg then anytime soon?
I don't have any plans, but if you know a nice property in Luxembourg, I'd go and look at it. But no, there's no plans to do anything except to develop this in the context of being a Portuguese wolframite project, and we are trying to make this as Portuguese as possible, not just to distinguish ourselves in the market. But, part of social acceptability in the country and locally and in the north is that this is as much their project as it is our project. We're all stakeholders, whether we're shareholders or workers or anybody here in Portugal. We're very much aware that we have to work with everybody to make this project a success.
If you want to start making yourself more Portuguese, get better weather next time.
Yeah, I know. It's been raining here for 6 days.
It's going to stop raining the moment we leave.
Yeah, I know. I know, but that's. But the good news is it definitely shows that we don't have any issues with water. We've got lots of water available to us if we need it. So.
What do you think in becoming a Portuguese wolframite producer? What do you think are going to be the biggest challenges along that route? I spoke to Joao about permitting and communities and everything. Is that part of it? Is it something else that you see as a big challenge?
So when I first got involved with this project, that was my first concern was permitting. But I can tell you where we are in Portugal, what we're doing, working on a brownfield property, and the great job that Joao and Vitor and the rest of our team has done in terms of socializing the project. I'm not worried about permitting. I think the challenge is in the mining industry, you always have these windows of opportunity that open and close. And you have to, while that window of opportunity is open, you have to move as fast as you can in order to advance your project as far as you can. And there's some variables, such as the availability of equipment, that might be out of our control. So it's really things like that. If we ordering equipment, how long it's going to take, how that's going to affect other things. Remember, we're trying to multitask rather than work sequentially here. So it could be that a delay in one item results in a delay in us getting something else done. But today, I think our team has done a terrific job in delivering largely on time with practically all our promises. I mean, I'll let you be the judge of that. We sat down maybe 6 months ago and we talked about all the things we wanted to do this year, and I think we've checked most of them off the list, and those that we haven't, I think we'll have done in the next couple of months.
And I know I'm going to be following along with the story, and I'm going to be chatting to you over the next couple of months as well, but thank you so much for having me out here. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Antonio. I hope you enjoyed your trip to Portugal. You didn't get the best weather, but you got great food.
And as always, thanks to everyone for watching Resource Talks. I have a couple of more things to say, though. The fact that this company was interviewed here today does not mean that they're necessarily a good or a bad company. I'm not here to endorse nor attack anyone. I am simply here to ask some questions. If you find that I have failed in asking a question that you would have liked to hear an answer to, which will happen as I'm not an experienced interviewer, please let me know and I will try to correct that mistake in a future interview. As mentioned at the beginning, please understand that mineral exploration and development is an extremely risky business. Losing money is the norm and should be the expectation. This is a very complex sector, and the performance of individual companies typically depends on many different moving particles, including company-specific factors like geology, financing ability, and many others really, as well as particles that are outside of the company's control, like geopolitics, macroeconomics, commodity prices, and many more, most of which are nearly impossible to fully understand. Moreover, these companies that typically get interviewed on Resource Talks are in the pre-revenue stage, which means they rely on the public markets for the financing of their operations, which could result in shareholder dilution. Furthermore, as a general rule of thumb, you'll be better off understanding that all company communications online, albeit this interview or their website and their presentation and their social media accounts, or even the social media accounts which you thought were your friends and then told you about a stock, everything really that these companies do is intended as marketing. And although I do not make buy or sell recommendations because there is a clear conflict of interest given the nature of my business, many out there do. And you should be aware of that inherent bias and you should be careful out there. That bias is not always going to be clearly disclosed with everyone out there. So it is safer for you anytime you're watching any type of company specific content to approach it with a dose of skepticism and assume that the party telling you about it is biased in at least some shape or form, because there will always be a bias. Again, albeit clear or not. So always ask yourself what the incentive of your counterparty is and never rely on them regardless of their incentives, but instead double check if what they're saying is true, again, by using setterplus.ca. The fact that I have no idea what I'm doing should already be clear to you at this point. I am not saying this to make jokes or laugh with myself. I just simply do not have a long enough track record of consistent investment profits. So I should under no circumstances be considered an authority on anything. Again, although this may sound amusing to you, believe me, it is not amusing and it is not intended as a joke. I'm simply pointing out a fact and warning you not to rely on anything I do or say. Unfortunately, at least to my understanding, nobody out there has any special abilities. The CEOs do not possess any superior knowledge, and they cannot know about what will go up, what will go down, or what will go in circles. Some people even believe that to be rule number one on Wall Street. Nobody really knows. None of us know whether any of the company's activities will result in a success, again, given that we're talking about high-risk activities where most of the times it ends in failure. So unfortunately, try as I may, I won't always catch all red flags or all challenges with the companies. So even if I did ask a few tough questions in here, don't rely on this being all of the tough questions. Again, these are complicated startups with many moving parts, and I am conflicted given the nature of this business. Therefore, I cannot guarantee the quality of anything presented in this video, and you cannot hold me responsible for any losses or damages stemming from the way you decide to use this interview. Viewers, listeners, and readers acknowledge and agree that the information presented herein did not constitute a solicitation or an offer to buy or sell any security or investment or to participate in any trading strategy. Resource Talks and all parties involved in the management of the business strictly disclaim any and all liability for losses and or damages, whether direct, indirect, special, or consequential, or other consequences, however so caused, arising out of any use or reproduction of the content published by Resource Talks or any decision made or action taken in reliance upon it. By consuming this content, all consumers vow to release Resource Talks and all parties involved in the management of the business from all claims, proceedings, or consequences. This is all to say, I know it's a lot of lawyer talk, but this is all to say that you shouldn't blindly trust me or anybody on the internet, and you should do your own research. Once again, social media is meant for entertainment. It is setterplus.ca where you do your research. That's where you'll find the company's official filings, and I encourage you to read and analyze the Management Information Circular, the financial statements, the Management Discussion and Analysis, and whenever available, the NI 43-101 technical documents. If you don't understand everything in those documents, the chances of you losing money are even higher than they normally are in this space. And as mentioned earlier, the chances of even the best analysts in this sector losing money are extremely high, since this is venture capital and it is not for everybody. I'll leave you with one of Charlie Munger's quotes, which I wish I had listened to more often earlier on, which says, quote, "If you don't understand it, don't do it."